Hi everybody, Father Billy Clark here. My website, www.TheFourthHealing.com, all spelled out one word, TheFourthHealing. Welcome. Today, we have a deep topic to talk about. If God is love, why are there starving children? This is a big one. A lot of people get tripped up by this because they don't fully understand what's going on here in the whole world. In this world, it is not just the story of mankind, and it is not just the story of angels. It is the story of God's love. So we know God is love. So why did these things happen? Why are these things allowed? Well, in order to delve deeper, we have to look into the three original issues. These come about through Job and Job's testing, but let's go over the three original issues and then I'll circle back to them. The first original issue: mankind can do everything on his own apart from God's help. That mankind will do anything he can to save his life, including curse God. And that mankind only comes to God for what he can get out of God. These three original issues were brought up against mankind by what are now the unholy angels. As we've seen in the world, man really struggles trying to lead on his own. Apart from God, he doesn't do well. No matter what form of government all throughout history, we see mankind cannot do it on their own. And we also recognize through the lives of so many martyrs, even those recent ones, that mankind will not curse God even when put to death, that so many have laid down their lives. Prayer, connected and loving God, praising even as their life is extinguished in their body, their spirit may continue on. How beautiful. And lastly, that mankind doesn't come to God for what they can get out of God, like an ATM. And even as parents most realize this, that mankind comes to God because he loves God and looks to serve God, to be pleasing to God, and to be that place of love for God here on earth. How beautiful. So God knew that mankind would prove worthy of these places of love and allowed for a testing to occur. Now, God didn't command the testing, but he allowed it to happen. And this is a big point. And this is one, again, that some people get tripped up by. For as we look at the story of Job, it was not God that took away the things from Job. It was Satan. And as I'll read to you from Job, so that we can understand a little bit more of the idea of what's happening and why the original issues are occurring. Let's start with the background with Job. Wonderful example. This is from Job chapter 1, verses 6 through 12. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout this earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. Therein lies the court case, if you will, of what we're in now. I refer to it as a court case because we're at the point now where the original issues have been settled. There have been enough experiences and enough examples, time after time after time, that mankind cannot lead his footsteps apart from God, that mankind will not do anything to save his life, including curse God. In fact, as we mentioned with the martyrs, there will be those that have laid down their lives even to the point of death, still praising God, and that mankind doesn't come to God for what he can get out of God. Beautiful. So we're at the point in the court case now where the bailiff is about to stand and read the decision. That's how close we are for everything happening right now. We are that close to how things will shift. Pretty cool. So when we look at the story of Job, and it brings up the first original issues, we see that it wasn't God that did it. God said, and I'll quote it again because it's a pretty big one, "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Job, even not understanding what was going on, replied at the end of chapter 1, verse 20 through 22, when he was told that all of his land was taken and ravaged, all of his flocks were killed, and his children died, and the houses collapsed on them. At this, Job got up, tore his robe, and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. Big one there. And as I mentioned, preceding that, "Very well then," God said, "everything he has is in your power." That's a big deal. God knew that Job would be proven not only righteous, but trustworthy. And Satan didn't have to do any of those things. But in his misuse of free will, he did. He could have trusted God and said, "Hey, you're right. Job's a good man." But he didn't. This still continues to this day. So many places all around the world, all throughout time to date, people have suffered because rather than take God's word for it or see the many examples or recognize that these three original issues have gathered enough evidence to be brought before God, the unholy angels, the fallen angels, what people refer to as demons, they still seek to harm mankind and harm God in three significant ways: through health, through destruction of finances, and through causing strife in family and relationships. Those three places, dating all the way back to Job and even before, were where it was known that mankind is vulnerable. So the issue of free will is what's about all the things that are going on now and how that plays a hand in the story of God's love. Recognizing this, we see that it is not just about mankind. What happens when we die, right? These bodies, when they fail, we can go right back to God. Our spirit continues on. So while we focus on the death part, we miss the wonderful part, the rejoicing part, the return home to God's love. It is not easy to be here on the earth. There's a lot of manipulation going on. We see this all the time. If more were listening to God, we'd have an easier time. If more paid attention to the 10 Commandments from the beginning, we'd have an easier time. But yet, the level of manipulation that the unholy angels seek to cause upon humanity is greater than it has ever been, and it will increase. But do not fear, for we know the end of the story. Love wins. And that's a big part of the message that we were given. In fact, the central core of our ministry is, as the dark is getting darker, the light is getting brighter. So have hope for what is to come, for love wins. So let's tie this all together for you. In recognizing that there are starving children, that is but one part. There are also those being murdered, raped, abducted, sold into slavery, children even, abused, and tortured. There is so much of this going on in the world. In the United States, we're very insulated. We don't see this as much, and it happens right under our nose. But this is a worldwide phenomenon that has been occurring for a long, long time. But again, have hope, for it will not be much longer. There has been enough evidence, and the 3 original issues have been answered, showing that God's right to rule through love is the way to do it. So while we'll have a little bit more bumps in the road on the way to his kingdom, do not fear. Trust in love and love's plan for you. And use your gifts and your talents, especially during these last parts, so that when all is said and done, we can celebrate the story of God's love through you and the victory that you had in love through your faith and through your desire to serve and to please God. If more had this, if more followed through, if more looked to serve rather than to take, we would not have starving children. We would not have the poor. But this was known from a long time ago, that there would be those that were easily manipulated by the unholy, by these fallen angels, and these people here on earth would make bad choices. But that's for another video. We'll be discussing that soon. In the meantime, know that that wasn't God's will. God looks for us all to choose that place of love. And even though it was known, even in the time of Christ, that there would still be poor among us, as he told us when he was talking to the disciples in Matthew chapter 26. This was right after he had the balm placed all over him, and the apostle Judas said that could have been sold for a large amount of money, and the proceeds gone to feed the poor. Now Christ even knew that Judas was stealing money from everybody, especially the apostles, and knew that Judas would be the one to turn. He said to them, Matthew 26:11, "The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me." So Christ knew that from the beginning, and even told them, yeah, we still have the poor. We still have those making some not great decisions. We still have those struggling. We still have those taking the food that could go to the poor and spending money on themselves, or hoarding, or stealing, or harming. So pray, and pray vigorously, for so much more can be done through you. We forget how much passionate prayer can change the world. We forget how the faithfulness of one person can be so bright that God answers them immediately, and there is less suffering. and there are more miracles. So pray. Pray more people reach out. Pray more people build wells in the places that are parched and dry. Pray that more food gets to those that are in need. Pray that more people pay attention to helping one another, and, as we're told, loving one another. Pray that less fall prey to the manipulation of the unholy angels, and pray that more seek out God and to do His will, and to ease the suffering of mankind through this time of world shift, through this time as we get ready for His kingdom. Pray and have faith. You are loved. God trusts you and has given you gifts and talents to change the world. Go and be pleasing to our Lord. God bless you.